likewise and Sue. Gina, do you want to get us started this evening with the mission?
I think we lost her.
Somebody else want to step forward? Did we really lose her?
She disappeared. Yeah, I can read the statement.
Thank you, Eric.
Inspiring our community to dream more, learn more, do more, and be more.
Thank you. Thank you. Jason, do we have any introductions this evening?
No special introductions. We have our wonderful and talented director team here, and just want to say welcome to the public for attending.
Thank you. Any additions or changes to the agenda from those gathered? I want to make one item of note that you'll see different this evening. We've changed up a little bit how the leaders are reporting. Jason will be presenting on their behalf sort of the routine items, and then on occasion we'll be hearing from leaders when they actually have something of significance to bring to the board or comment on in terms of their work. So thank you for that. Public comment. The Board of Trustees welcomes public comment. This time is designated for the public to address issues other than personnel issues or those included on the agenda. Since our meetings are continue to be held virtually, we ask for those public comments to be submitted in writing by mail prior to the meeting. I don't believe we have any public comment this evening, Tammy.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sorry, you guys, I got having technical difficulties here.
Eric's got you covered, Gina, so we're good. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion of the Board of Trustees with no separate discussion. If there is separate discussion desired on any of the items, they may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request. Included in the consent agenda tonight are minutes from the regular May 24 Board of Trustees meeting, as we were unable to approve those last meeting due to a lack of quorum. Minutes from the May 26 special meeting of the Board of Trustees, which was the approval of the collective bargaining agreement. Minutes of last month's meeting on June 28th for the regular board meeting. Payment of the May to June bills, including payroll and benefits and blanket voucher bills. And surplus library materials that are being withdrawn from the collection for May and June, a total of 7,339 items. If there's no call for an item to be removed for discussion, does somebody want to move the consent agenda, please?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
So second.
Second.
Thanks, Eric. All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Good. We are now to board member reports. Eric, do you want to go first?
Sure, I'll go first. Over the last couple of weeks, I had the pleasure of participating in the Kitsap Regional Library Foundation offsite that Wendy Kyle helped organize, and got to see all the board members in person. Also got to see Gina there. I'll let Gina dive into the details of it. Was also happy to see about a week and a half ago at the Pride Festival on Bainbridge that the Bainbridge Public Library had a table there. So was happy to see them there.
Great, thank you. Gina, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, sure. I did a couple of things. I sat in with Leanne at the branch. The Kingston Little Boston had a table at the Strong Family Fair in Little Boston, and they had over 400 people come through and visit all the different tables. And I went to the Kingston Library. I think the foundation sponsored it, the African music band out in the lawn. Yeah. That was really fun and really nice, even though when I was there were only 2 band members instead of 4. And then I attended the Foundation of Directors meeting. I guess it was one of their retreats. They were reviewing the board and gears curriculum, and they had 5 subject matters: connection to cause, responsibility, board matrix, operation, and fundraising. It was really great. And then Eric and Wendy did a fundraising 101 presentation. It was really good. I was really excited. Eric you're really knowledgeable on fundraising. I learned a lot from you. So there was 10 board members there, and I think about 2 staff, and then Jason came and gave his report. It was excellent. I learned a lot. So thanks.
Thank you. Sue?
Well, I attended a Port Orchard Community Event Center planning meeting with Rice Fergus Miller. Dan Bear was also there, and it's really exciting to see that Community Event Center and the library, the planning coming together and the design and everything. So I'm really excited about that.
There's been a lot of community activity. I was noticing in the report just how many places the staff are, and grateful that the board's tracking that too. I've been following along, both because of my work, but Lucretia's involved with this too, with the community needs assessment that is happening in the community, a collaborative venture to update the data that we have in the community about what the needs are. So that's going very well, and we look forward to bringing more information on that back to the board. With that, Sue, do you want to report on the finance committee meeting we had prior?
Sure. Just 2 items, really. One is that we're halfway through the year. We're behind a little bit on the capital expenditures, but that's due in part to the delayed billing with the McKinstry project that's happening at Sylvan Way. The roof is almost complete, and the next phase of that project will be the switch gears. And so that's exciting. That project's lots has been going on at Sylvan Way. The second part of the meeting was talking about the financial forecast, and the projected outlook for next year looks pretty much the same as this year. There's a couple of unknowns. One is what the construction revenue will be for next year. And then also the other unknown is what medical costs might be for next year. But I would like to point out that we have in the past, and we will next year, also be able to take advantage of a 2% savings on medical costs because of the wellness program. And I just want to say thank you and kudos to all the staff for participating in that, because that 2% does make a difference. So thank you very much.
Any questions for Sue? Dan, would you like to follow up with the financial report?
Well, good evening, everyone. Sue, you did a great job on that report, and I don't have anything to add, so I'm here just to take any questions that anybody might have on the financial report for June.
So Dan, I imagine this is might tie in a little bit later with one of the policies we're looking at, but I definitely noted just the amount of security services that are being utilized in some of our branches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an unexpected increase, obviously, that we've been experiencing.
Well, it's something we hope we would be able to phase out at this point, but we're not able to. It's been helpful to us, and I've been working with Shannon in Public Services and working with our security firm to see how they can better serve us. And we might even be looking at using them at another branch if we can get them to provide services there. We are finding them valuable and helpful. And but it is more than we anticipated when we put the budget together.
Thank you.
And I have a follow-up question. When you're at the 6-month mark and you're over, like overspent or at like 121% of something, I know that how do you adjust that?
Well, one of the things, Gina, was we look at is why is that happening? Is it a one-time thing? Is it something that we need to change the 2023 budget for that? Do we have savings in other accounts that are going to offset it for the remainder of the year? And then we proceed from that. So because we're still kind of recovering from COVID, we still have some savings in other accounts like travel and training, where people aren't doing a lot of travel and training and they're not going to conferences and things like that. So we do have that, but so we look at why it's overexpended, whether it was our projection or that we thought we were going to spend is off, or whether it's one time, essentially. So we'll adjust for that. And hopefully my goal is those go away for next year's budget. I don't like to make them disappear as we're seeing the expenditure reports by doing a budget transfer. I like to see how it's going to play out through the end of the year, so we have the best picture possible for what we may be spending for next year's budget on an ongoing basis. And security is one of those things where we're probably going to have to increase the amount that we're going to be putting into security if we're going to keep using them at this clip.
And I assume like maybe legal services won't be as rapidly increasing because of the settlement agreement or with the bargaining.
I hope so. We spent a lot of time in bargaining, so I'm hoping that that will decrease in next year's budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan. You always do a great job. I love all the footnotes.
Thank you.
Jason, library.
Good evening, everyone. So just to reiterate conversation we had earlier about the new format for the board report, just wanted to give the public a heads up too as to the new format. And so essentially what we'll do is go through an entire report of library activity, and we'll call on our directors to provide commentary and a little more feedback where needed. And so this will be the format moving forward. It will evolve. And so Tammy, thanks for creating a neat little booklet for me to go from. As per usual, I won't read verbatim, but I'll highlight some of the neat things going on at KRL. I'll just take you through a snapshot of all of our activities over the last 30 days. But before that, I want to introduce our wonderful leadership team. So Director Kwang Kai is present here from Collection and Technology. We have Director Jeannie Allen here from Marketing and Communications, Director Shannon Peterson from Public Services, Director Lucretia Robertson of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Interim Director of HR. And last but certainly not least, Dan Baer, who's our Chief Financial and Operating Officer, are present. Excused is Mike Rose, Director of Facilities. He's out taking care of some family business, as well as Executive Director Wendy Kyle of our Kitsap Regional Library Foundation, who's out as well, attending to family business. So having said that, I'm going to launch into my report. So as I always like to do, particularly in weekly messages, talk about reflections. So as we've really returned to in-person services, there's been some robust activities. It's been really neat to be out at the branches at various meetings and seeing all the activity in all of our locations, from programs to patron visits to patrons using the facilities. I certainly have checked out my share of books from all of our locations. So it's neat to see that there's a demand for services. People are getting back to visiting the library, and that's always great to see. And there's an increased demand in meeting spaces. And so a lot of what's happened in COVID is there's this pent up demand for folks to meet and gather, and libraries have played a central role in that. So we're noticing those trends. There's been an overall uptick in circulation. Obviously increased from last year because we just weren't in person, but particularly we've seen a steady increase over the last 12 months in circulation, overall total circulation, either online, at self-checkouts and at our circulation station. So that's always a good trend to see, particularly in where we were and coming out of the pandemic. I think that the thinking was that, we'd never really get back to where we were, and thinking that we'd be really have a hard time getting back to kind of pre-COVID stats. And we're seeing it trending towards that. So that's been good to see. Our staff has been really resilient. I'm proud of the staff here at Kitsap Regional Library for dealing with the adversities of COVID. And certainly this is a resilient bunch that is continuing to deal with challenges of COVID, dealing with the challenges of getting back to in-person programming and work, and also absorbing the staff losses and organizational challenges we've had. And so I think it's no secret, and I'll talk about that in a minute when we cover HR stuff, that we've had lots of staff movement, which is fairly normal for libraries, but it seems like we have had quite a bit since my arrival. So moving forward, we're going to remain nimble as an organization. So we'll provide some robust trainings. We've just had our training specialist start, so I'm happy to report that she's in the fold now, and we'll be starting to develop more of our training plan and being responsive to community needs, because that's what we're all about. And then, activities for me, I attended the American Library Association conference last month at the tail end of the month. I think when I did the board meeting, I was at the conference. So that was a great conference to attend. I am still chair of a committee, a very important one, but nevertheless busy one, Coretta Scott King Committee. I am a jury chair for that committee, and our central task is really to evaluate books that are really emblematic of the African-American experience. And these are books from really birth through 18. So it's a pretty wide spectrum of books that we have to evaluate, and it's pretty heavy duty being a jury member. But I'm proud to represent KRL in that capacity and had the opportunity to really form some neat relationships at ALA and connect with some real good community stakeholders that we can talk to help out here at KRL and further develop our vision. So more will come of that later. And then in terms of staffing and human resources, we've had lots of activity, lots of new hires. We've had some changes in positions, most notably resignations. Unfortunately, IT manager Liz Steyer has resigned as of the 30th of June. And then Timothy Hayden and Mobile Services Library Associate just resigned as of the July 15th. So those folks have moved on to other job opportunities. And so again, we will move forward. And the good thing about that, as I've said in the previous month, that just opens the door for other staff to apply for these positions. So one of the things the staff movement does is it gives staff who've developed their educational skills, their trainings here, they are able to then move up into those locations. We're certainly seeing that now with staff applying for vacancies within the organization. And then moving on to, and one of the other pieces, and I'm going to cover this in a minute, and Shannon can talk about the impacts of this, is we're losing one of our brilliant managers. Ashley Oaksmith is going to be leaving Silverdale in a matter of a few days here. And so while that's unfortunate, she's taking a new opportunity, and again, that will open up another opportunity. And so Shannon is headlong into the process of interviewing and getting things set up with HR for a new manager for there. But public services is always active and busy. There's been a lot of celebrations around Pride in June, and certainly we'll talk about next month what happened at the Pride Fest over in the Kitsap County Fairgrounds, which we had lots of staff representation. But we did have lots of neat displays, lots of Pride swag that was developed from our marketing team, and that was on full display this month in our branches. And then we have also in dealing with positions again, library associate at Bainbridge, East Lesotho was promoted to librarian, and so that's great. She will be now the youth services librarian, moving into that position from a library associate. So it's been good to see her develop her skills over the years and to be the successful candidate to take on that position. And she certainly has a lot of relationships with the community. Shannon and I and the interview panel for that position thought that she was definitely the best candidate for that role, and was able to continue the great work of the previous children's librarian there. And then in terms of Silverdale Transition, Shannon, do you want to offer any more insight into that or the impacts that has for Silverdale?
Yeah, just one new update regarding Silverdale. We were able to hold interviews and select a candidate for the public services supervisor position. So this is kind of the partner in crime to our new branch manager. And Jonathan Wilson, who is currently a public services supervisor at Manchester, was selected and will be starting on August 15th. So I'm really excited to see Wilson come back. He actually started his library career at Silverdale, moving from a totally different field. So I know he has a lot of big fans at that location and will bring a lot of dynamic energy back to the team. So really grateful for a little bit more stability in that process. And we're kind of midstream with our branch manager process, and we'll be hopefully starting interviews in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thanks, Shannon. And also just moving into operations a bit with public services folks, we have really done a lot of training around getting the associates ready to engage in site support. And so as a result of that, Shannon's been busy getting feedback from staff. We've been reviewing policies and really filling out their training in the hopes that we'll be prepared to do that later in the summer towards the fall. And so part of that has been getting a training in the books that is related to conflict de-escalation. There's a real neat training that I actually did in Chicago. It's through Niche Academy, and it's really dealing with those experiencing homelessness. It's actually billed as a homeless training, but it covers a lot of other techniques that are particularly helpful for staff in dealing with, you know, conflicts within the branches, and it has a lot of implications for how to handle incidents. So we thought that that's a really helpful training to have associates take part in, since they will be called upon to, you know, essentially take on those tasks and to really be able to be points of contact for dealing with staff conflict and conflict resolution. So we're happy about that. And then moving into the programming and services side, really happy that book lockers are here. So I saw a post from a couple of different folks on Facebook. Thank you, Stephanie, for posting about book lockers. Really neat design. Ayana Jones, who is just kind of our everything designer. She's just really brilliant with a lot of her design. She is the creator of the beautiful design you see. And as I look at my picture of this book locker, it's just stunning, isn't it? It just kind of draws your attention to it. And so the idea of the book locker, and I put a test hold on 2 items and successfully picked it up without incident. So suffice to say, as a test user, it worked for me. I was excited that I was able to put a couple of holds on right away and use it. And I think, you know, once we work out, you know, all of the kinks, this is really going to be neat for our community. You know, I've talked about before the idea that, you know, once we can build some capacity around this, we will push it out to remote areas. And so, you know, once we move through the piloting phase of this, I think, you know, and we can do a little bit of evaluation and get some feedback from the team, we'll be able to start to talk about plans to push book lockers out to a few different locations. But really want to give a big shout out to Sharon Grant. You know, she's our project manager extraordinaire and is really able to just anything we give her, you know, she can just pretty much turn around and she makes it look effortless. So I'm glad the book locker project is here, and you know, feel free to use it and give it a test hold or two.
Jason, can I ask a question? First of all, am I to understand that this is another fabulous design project from the internal team? That's amazing.
Yes.
Is that's a wrap or something that goes on that? Is that what When I first saw it, it struck me as, you know, there's a big push in Bremerton for all those selfie places. I thought, oh, what a cool selfie place.
All right. That's a good idea.
Yeah, it was cool. And I know that was funded by a grant, and I saw the line items. So the total cost on one of these is.
What is the total cost, Shannon or Dan? I don't have it in front of me.
The budget says 40, about 40.
42, 43,000
Okay.
for this model. There are different models, but for this model, yeah.
And then the issues after that are really how to integrate the system to support that within the system.
Yeah. And then in terms of remote locations, you know, there's the need for power and data. And so that will have to be taken into account depending on where we move it. So while it's a good idea to move it to a remote area, it has to have the infrastructure that will support.
It's got to have.
Exactly. So we'll need to be intentional about where we put it. Go ahead, Shannon.
Yeah. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off there. One of the things that we've learned from library systems about this is the site work can also be really significant. Like if there's not a clear base, that could be a lot more expensive than hope or imagine. So that also kind of plays into it.
Be interesting to see if there's just sort of a natural partner out there that makes sense to co-locate those with. They're very cool.
Yeah, that is very cool. I want to move on to collection and technology services. So reading lists are always important. It's always neat to see CTS develop new reading lists each month. And so July was Disability Pride Month. So there's, you know, relevant reading lists for adults, teens, and kids. And so One of the other things that CTS and IT has been involved in recently is the Bibliocommons implementation. So while we're not at implementation yet, Kwang and I had conversations long ago about acquiring a new product, and then Jeannie was brought along, and in March we were able to interview a couple of vendors, and we came to Bibliocommons. And so really excited that we're now fully into contract phase and onto the development phase now, and with the hopes of having new products in line for hopefully later this year, if not early next year. I don't really want to give a firm timeline now, just because planning is fluid right now. But I want to point out the stellar work of our team as a whole in trying to get this implemented. And so, what I'm really excited about is the mobile app. I love technology. Kwang knows this, and anything that any new technologies that I can play with, I'm happy about. Kwang, you want to provide a little more insight into Bibliocommons and the libraries in the Washington area that also are Bibliocommons customers?
Yeah, so like Jason said, I'm super excited about the Biblio apps, the mobile app as well. I think since I've been here, I've wrote it like at least 3 to 5 emails to patrons asking in terms of when we're going to get a mobile app. So I'll be very glad to not have to answer that question anymore, hopefully soon. But as far as Bibliocommons, it's a fantastic product. I think our website, still looks great. And I think that's a testament to what a great job the team did when it was originally designed, but it certainly could use a refresh. There's some other sort of issues with it as well that I know Jeannie and I were really well aware of, and we're looking forward to kind of addressing that. Obviously, in terms of the catalog, the user interface and the user experience, I think, is top notch compared to the catalog that we have now. So just lots of benefits. It addresses a number of critical areas for us where we had a need. So I'm really excited about it. When I announced it to the entire staff, I received a couple of emails back, and everyone was super thrilled about it. So I'm thrilled as well. So, and obviously a number of libraries around the area have been using it, and I provided some links as well. So feel free to take a look. That's it.
Thanks, Kwang. Other stuff going on in IT, and IT has certainly been busy over the last 30 days. Recabling work has happened in the admin area, which kept some of us out for a couple days. So, for those of you who've done telework, telework can be good, but also can be pretty tricky, particularly for me navigating around kids and a niece in town. So telework for about 3 days. But the benefit of having the cabling work done is that, we've had some issues. This is a pretty aging building. And so in order to update, all of our communications, it was imperative to get in here. And with E-rate, Kwang selected the E-rate for this year, selected the admin area to really be able to upgrade our cabling in this area. So thanks, Kwang, and for getting that done. And it was a minor inconvenience to be out of the office. Also shared network and file migrations to the cloud. That's been a particularly big project for us. And so that is ongoing. So we've been cleaning up tons of files, particularly in the admin office. We've been really figuring out, it's been a process, but we've really been figuring out how to migrate all of our files over and what we can ditch, what we can keep. So that's been pretty busy. We've gotten a lot of support from IT on that and sort of navigating that whole process, as the entire organization is involved in that process. So there's been a lot of activity. And then Teams trainings. I really want to highlight the work of IT to implement Microsoft Teams trainings. Our entire organization is migrating most of our meeting activities from Zoom to Teams. And so obviously that involves lots of training. Teams provides us lots of opportunities to collaborate where we couldn't in Zoom. And so there's been lots of trainings that have happened over the past, 30 days involving Teams migrations. So a lot of our leadership meetings have moved to Teams now. A lot of our shared communications are in that arena as well. And so that concludes information technology and collections. want to move over to foundation. And so as Gina talked about, we both attended the year-end foundation retreat held at Silverdale, which was phenomenal on July 12th. Really, it was all about the GEARS assessment. So the GEARS assessment covers these 5 areas of board practice: connection to cause, roles and responsibilities, how to build a great board, sustain a great board, and engage members in fundraising. And with the board identifying out of all of those 5 areas, goals and areas of improvement. So it was really neat to watch the board go through that entire process. Board was really engaged. What we, I think, found through that process, Gina, I think you can agree, is that there was probably not anything the board didn't do well. There are a couple of areas where they thought they could really maybe improve in, but for the most part, measuring up against that assessment, the board is really doing everything it can to match up to those competencies. So it was good to be there and to engage with the board and to talk about plans for next year, to talk about endowments, and to really talk about a vision for where the foundation board is going. We talked about annual giving and active donor base, and including a survey with feedback. And then in terms of grants for the board, we've received summer learning grants. Bainbridge Island Community Foundation funded our request for $10,000. The Umpqua Bank Charitable Foundation fully funded a $5,000 request, and then the Suquamish Foundation fully funded our $5,000 request. We're waiting for response from the Port Gamble Slalom Appendix 10 Fund, and then we've submitted a request at Safeway for 3rd graders to the library and are waiting a response. And then fundraising recognition events. We've been planning for a while now because of Silverdale. We're coordinating with the unveiling of our donor wall, which is still in process. And so the idea is that once we have that donor wall installed, we'll then, which we hope to have in early fall, we'll do a donor celebration and recognition around the unveiling of that. So that's upcoming. Any questions about the Baham Foundation Board? And then I'm going to move to facilities. Not much. We've talked more and more about McKinstry and what's happening here at Sylvan Way. So the roof is almost done. I think the staff here will be glad when work is done. I think I'll be glad when work was done. There's been intermittent pounding, and yeah, I want to say that the work has really been professional. I mean, as any contracting work happens, there's always, issues that happen with, us being inconvenienced a bit, but Mike has really been good about communicating. He presented a brilliant PowerPoint. We've talked about this before, that really gave the timelines and the expectations for it. So that work has been replaced. The advantage of having that is that for a building as old as this, we'll have, roof life of probably near, 50, 60 years on this roof, if not longer. And so I think it might be a bit longer than that. And so we're happy that this process should be finished by this weekend. With the hot temperatures, they'll have to adjust some of the work, but we should be ready to move into the next phase of the McKinstry project, which will be the switch gear replacement. And what that's going to entail is probably 2 to 3 days of power outage. So we'll have to manage that. Likely will happen around Labor Day or there a little bit thereafter. So we'll have to manage expectations, staff schedules, and alternative work situations for staff here in order to make that happen. But again, it's necessary to replace, our aging electrical boxes here. And once that work is done, we'll be, on to the next project, whatever that might be. Lastly, I always like to end on a good note with celebrations. We're always celebrating here. A big part of what we do is celebrate with our community. We've had a lot of good calls for celebrations. Manchester, 75th year anniversary. We've talked about Salmon Bake last month. One of the things that happened right after or right before our board meeting was that we unveiled the new addition to Manchester right in time for the 75th year anniversary. So there's a grand reopening. Several board members were there and board of trustee members were there. So thank you for supporting. And then also staff the same day was able to participate in the Fathoms of Fun parade, which I'm sad I missed. I heard a lot about it when I got here, but I did get a chance to participate in the Bainbridge Island 4th of July parade. The following week when I got back from ALA, and that was phenomenal. My whole family got a chance to participate and really just absorb the library love that was happening as we walked down the parade route. So it was fun to be a part of that celebration, and more parades to come, I hear. So lots of fun. And then media mentions, there was an article in the Kitsap Daily News showcasing the Manchester expansion, and I really want to give a big shout out to Kathleen Wilson, who's the regional manager of Port Orchard and Manchester, for all the work she did with Friends of Manchester and with facilities and with marketing, entire team to really be able to pull off, the entire, what was 2 weeks of activities, salmon bake, soft opening, and then the grand reopening the following week. So lots of activity that go into having events like this, but it wouldn't be possible without the stellar work of all the aforementioned folks who are good collaborators to make things like that happen. So that is the conclusion of our director's reports. Any questions? Gina?
I just want to say, Jason, I love all your pictures. I am a photography person. I take 1 million pictures. I have like 40,000 on my phone. So I really appreciate those. And I was wondering if we wanted to share pictures of events that we attend that we took personally, we could use on the Facebook page or wherever else. How can we do that? Can we send them to somebody or?
Yeah, so I'm going to defer to Jeannie, and she'll give you the, official. Jeannie?
Yeah, you can absolutely send them to me and we can figure out where they go. We do, when we have pictures that are specifically of individuals, we like to get permission for those. But if it's something that's going into a report, those are definitely welcome. But if we're going to share them on social media or use them for other purposes, we want to make sure we've got signed permission for those. But absolutely, especially for like sharing among staff and in Jason's reports, those would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Follow up. We know correspondence to address. Items of.
Is Stephanie frozen or is it just me?
I think so. Oh, she's back.
Am I frozen?
You were, yeah. And
Oh, sorry. Jason, we have this resolution adding it looks like my internet's weird. We have the resolution about adding 2 new days as paid holidays. Are you going to speak to that before we?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we got a couple things to get approvals on. So, staff have been in the process of sharing, particularly with Lucretia and her DEI work, meaningful ways we can really celebrate the various cultures reflected in our community. It's important to all of us that we be reflective of all of our cultures here in Kitsap, and there are more conversations and work to do, but I think we've learned enough to galvanize us to really get here for this particular resolution. And so, given a little bit of context, President Biden in 2021 in October shared the proclamation that day is Indigenous Peoples Day, and the nation's contributions. The nation celebrates the valuable contributions and resilience of our Indigenous peoples. It recognizes their inherent sovereignty and commits to honoring the federal government's trust and treaty obligations to the tribal nations. We honor America's first inhabitants and the tribal nations that continue to thrive today. And so, although this Indigenous Peoples Day is not yet a federal holiday, federal legislation is underway, but we want to acknowledge and respect the contributions and the values that have really shaped the social, political, environmental, and economic fabric of our state. And so Washington also recognizes Native American Heritage Day, which is a Friday after Thanksgiving, as a legal state holiday, school holiday. And so for our purposes, Kitsap Regional Library, we've always had that day as a sort of an appendant day on to Thanksgiving, and staff have taken that day, but we've never officially recognized that day as Native American Heritage Day. So, although we actively partner with the Port Gamble's S'Klallam tribe, and we're trying to cultivate stronger relationships with, both tribes, Suquamish and the Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe, we can do more to recognize their rich cultural heritages in the area. And part of what we'll do is, after the proclamation, we really want to engage in the discourse with both tribes about how to best honor both of these days, not just in taking paid holidays, but what we can do around these holidays. So the idea is that we celebrate with activities, and so that we not just celebrate with getting a paid day off, but that during both days, that surrounding those days, that we partner with the tribes to really be able to engage in meaningful dialogue about what we should, as a library community, be doing. Obviously we love to do the book displays. We love to highlight, literature. We love to engage in the community and programming, but what more would be meaningful for us to do? And so we don't want to determine that. Our community should help determine that. So, as a library system, we've prepared some language that we'll be taking out to our tribes, and we'll be talking to all of our community members about how this will work for them and what this will mean for them as well. And so I've been fortunate to have developed at least initial meetings with both tribes through invitations to tribal councils. And we're going to build on the relationships we've already had with both tribes to be able to talk about this and really engage in the work of figuring out how to actively reflect holidays and what we should be doing as a library system. And so we'll have an invitation for feedback and really a commitment to do more. And that's essentially what will come out of this. So that's what we're want to put forth to the board to approve. Any questions?
Jason?
Yes. Hello?
So Jason, this actually repeals a prior resolution. Can you speak to how they're different?
Yeah, so the prior resolution, what'll happen is we had a previous resolution for Kitsap County Rural District holidays. And so anytime we present any new days, we have to have a new resolution. And so the other one was no longer valid, because essentially what we're doing is we're pending to this one new holidays. So the first one will be no longer valid after we approve this proclamation.
Any other questions for Jason?
Yeah, Jason, this is Eric. Just a question out of curiosity: where do the ideas, the requests for new updated holidays tend to come from? Do they come from staff? Do they come from the public? What drives that change?
Yeah, there are a couple of different things. We try to have listening sessions. We have been having listening sessions with staff on how to best recognize, in this particular case, our cultural celebrations. And so one of the things that happens is, depending on the month, there's always cultural celebrations, whether it be, Native American Heritage Month, whether it be Hispanic Heritage Month, African American History Month, and the like. We feel as an organization that it's best to have conversations with staff around, equity and representation, how to do that. Lucretia has been really valuable in that regard. So she's been able to have listening sessions and have a panel of folks to really be able to talk about what this means for our organization. Lucretia, you can speak more to that if you'd like, about your process and how that's gone.
I think that Jason has explained it pretty thoroughly. The gist of it is that outside of formal gatherings, there are informal one-on-ones and feedback that come from staff to say, if we are serious in our commitment around diversity, equity, inclusion, maybe we should start mirroring other ways in which other organizations are acknowledging and honoring the diversity, not only in staff, but in our population. So it's a voice within the library, and I'd like to believe that it's a voice shared within the community, particularly of folks who would like to see their their culture honored and recognized.
Got it. Thank you.
And I will say, just from a personal perspective, moving from Illinois and coming here, I've really been impressed at how, our native cultures here are more on display and are more respected and are more prominent than anywhere else I've seen in the country, including my home state of Illinois. So it's really been a goal of mine to get here to try to understand the culture, the history, traditions, and really the depth of the history here. And so I've really been trying to engage in lots of research and, speaking with anyone I can about what that means for our area. Visiting Heronswood Gardens was really neat with our leadership team, where we did a retreat and really having different conversations with folks who are representative of both tribes. It's really been a goal of mine to figure out what we can do as a library organization to better, reflect what that means for us here. One of the things that I found out, obviously, in my interview process and doing research is that our, Little Boston community is really prominent in, our library, both having staff who are part of, that particular community and where our library physically sits and being a part of that community. It's important that we do more than just in name only reflect that. Do it more than in name, more than in land acknowledgements, which are important, of course, but what else can we be doing? It's important to me, and I've had this conversation with a couple of you. That seems, while it's important, I don't want to do anything that feels hollow. And it feels very prescriptive to recite those. I know they're important and I know they were crafted by our communities, but what can we be doing? We need to be putting action behind our words. And so if we're going to have holidays, we have to work behind that too. And so that's the idea. Yes, we will celebrate as an organization. We'll be closed for these 2 days, but also we'll be engaged in activities around those, whether it be, the whole month, few days before, however it works for us. We need to lean into our workforce and into the community to figure out what feels right for us. So the real work now is what happens after that. It's easy to pass the proclamations. What happens in terms of the work? And that's where I call upon all of us to really engage in that work and figure out what needs to be done. Which is really more of a call to action than it is to have a day off. So I know it seems like that, and all of us love paid holidays. I love paid holidays. We all do, but it's more than just a holiday. So I want to be clear that this is just not giving staff a free day to be at home. While that's great and that's an added benefit, it also is a call to action for us. So any other questions?
Can I offer two things?
Yes, you may.
I know I just did some checking and a follow-up to your director's report, and you guys did get an Appendix X grant from the tribe.
We did.
Yes, $2,500, so you can expect that.
Thank you.
And then the Port Gamble Sklallam tribe, I cannot speak for Suquamish, but the Port Gamble Sklallam tribe is developing an ambassador program. And what we're doing is we're training tribal members on some facts and history of our own tribe so they can speak about our tribe and teach guests and visitors. And I would be happy to volunteer to do anything that the tribe can do with the staff. You guys can come visit. You can hear our drummers and singers, check out the Longhouse. I can do
Absolutely.
a tribal government 101 or whatever. I would be happy to help volunteer, coordinate, facilitate any of that. So,
okay.
Yeah, get the board in that too.
Yeah.
I think we all want in on that from the faces I'm reading in the room here. That's great. Thank you, Gina.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a wonderful opportunity. I'll talk to Shannon more about how we can engage in that, particularly with, Leanne. I know she's really been instrumental in forming good relationships with the tribe, and I think they speak highly of her as well. So let's lean into that. Any other commentary about the proclamation or the holidays in general? So this is my first time doing it. Do I have to actually read through the entire proclamation?
I don't think so, but I'll read the resolution as we set it up for a motion. Or does somebody want to make this motion to approve the resolution?
I move that we approve resolution 2022/06, adding Indigenous Peoples Day as a paid holiday for employees of KRL.
I think you need to go a little further that it replaces
Yeah, it's a little more.
resolution.
Oh, sorry, that was what I read. Hang on just a second, let me,
You want me to tag team?
yes, please.
Okay, sure.
Oh, and restarting, I see. And restarting the
Restating.
schedule of paid holidays in full and repealing resolution 2022/01. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Gina. Are there any further questions or comments on this before we take a vote? Hearing none, all in favor of passing resolution 2022, this is actually hard, 06. Acknowledge in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Great. On to a second.
Gina, you seconded that, right?
She did.
You did.
She did. Our next item of new business is a policy update for the standards for patron conduct policy. Shannon, it looks like you're on board to walk us through this.
Yeah, hi everyone. If there's any policy that public services staff are dog earing and leaving coffee stains on and whatever you do with documents that you use all the time, it's probably the standards for patron conduct. This is kind of our guiding light for any challenging human interactions, which as a library system, we have lots of humans, so those happen. So we've had lots of really rich conversations around this, talking with staff around any modernization needs, I guess I would say. So what are some of the new challenges that we're dealing with, and can we kind of address those in a little bit different way? Things like something as simple as adding vaping to our list of smoking and drug use and things like this. Service animal, adding a little bit more information there. Camping has become an ongoing issue. So just making sure that we're adding guidance to kind of help staff through those kind of newer issues that are popping up. Let's see. We're also, I think on the patron side, for both parties, I should say, we're hoping to make expectations as clear as possible. So more white space, shorter bullets, so that when you're in a challenging situation where you need to pull this out, print it, and hand it to someone, make it as user friendly and easy as possible. Was really the goal. We also worked as kind of a third tier to standardize language as much as possible. So as we kind of start reviewing each of our policies, how can we standardize across documents and remove as much kind of objective language as possible that can pop up. Words like appropriate, things like that, of course, have different meanings to different people. So those are kind of some of the lenses that we use to update this. We're also creating quite a robust staff instruction kind of procedure list attached to this, but that's still a work in progress. Just to provide a little bit more guidance for staff of, okay, here's the policy, now what might that look like on the ground and how can we help with that? I think I'm going to stop myself there, and I would love to hear any feedback or questions you may have.
I really appreciated the refresh on the language, Shannon. I think, when you look through it, it both was proactive and clear and simplified, and it did cause me to look at words like appropriate, and of course, by whose standard of appropriate. So I appreciated the updates that were reflected here, and it was also illuminating to get a lens in terms of what is it that our staff are dealing with on, in the branches. And anybody else got questions or comments for Shannon?
I too thought it was really well written. Thank you. I just had a question about the RCW at the bottom. Have we ever had to use that? And does that part need to be in the policy because it's already in state law?
Both good questions, Gina. Thankfully, I've never had to use that RCW. in the years that I've been in this position. And I think, as far as I know, it's included in the document in case we kind of run into a scenario where a patron wants to dig in at that level. So that's my understanding of why it's included there. And
Isn't that the RCW that allows the library the ability to trespass somebody?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
we've used it a lot in the past.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think I misunderstood your question, Gina. So yes, we have. I thought you meant, have we had people that were kind of fighting that trespass as written in this document? But trespasses, yes, those happen all the time. But no one has kind of run into us legally through this document in those situations.
Wow, okay, thank you.
I'm gonna hold myself back for a second. Trespasses do happen, not all the time. I would say maybe every few months we run into a situation that escalates and gets close. Probably a couple a year is what I've seen over the last couple of years.
And our staff really, they have the patience of Job collectively. And in order for us to get to trespass, it's serious. And really, when we're at that point, the behavior is such that it's really interfering not only with, patron safety, but also library business. Like, it's impossible to really navigate that behavior without lots of intervention. So whenever we get to that point, realize that staff have really been overly patient in dealing with it. And sometimes, more than enough times, if it was up to me, it's like, you've already been warned a couple times, that's it. Because, I just have a low tolerance too for patrons who engage in behavior that's abusive to staff. And the idea is that we protect our staff at all costs, and they have tools to really be able to deal with this. There's lots of flexibility. The policy is used as a guide, but we really need to protect our staff and other patrons against abuse from patrons, and really abuse of resources, abuse of resources, including time, and also, physical, verbal abuse, and also just threats. And so you get that a lot in COVID, hence the trainings with Ryan Dowd, and hence the, references to, the legal process that we have to go through to really be able to sort of redirect a patron in this instance like this. The idea is that we redirect, that they're able to come back and sign, an agreement with the manager, and then they're able to then attend the library without incident. But typically, I think in theory, what we have in theory really doesn't match up to what happens in practice, because oftentimes a patron is so disruptive that without, some outside intervention, it's really difficult to really be able to get to an agreement where they can use services without further incident. But, public services team does a great job at both communicating the incidents to the entire staff, so that we all know what's happening, and also to really be able to navigate the process and talk to each other through it too, so that other branches are aware. Because typically what happens with serial offenders in terms of violating library policies and procedures, not all, but there's a certain subset of violators who then travel to other libraries. So it's important that staff are privy to what could happen. And for protection purposes, I'm always really protective of our staff and making sure that we have tools to be able to deal with, some of the fallout of COVID too, because what we've seen is that, it's really has been an increase in unsheltered people who also are mentally ill. Unsheltered in and of itself isn't a threat, but unsheltered also with untreated mental illness and drug addiction has really caused lots of issues with patron incidents in our facilities. And so we're lucky that this process we have in place, and I'm glad that Shannon and team has cleaned this policy up to where we can have it more reflective of the community today and what's happening in Kitsap. And, we'll need to bring it back at some point. These policies are, meant to be, amended. And so we'll be back here with other policies too. My goal is to give all of our policies, a review and to freshen them up and make them more adequate to what's happening today. So more to come. If you like reviewing policy, Sue, and board, if you like approving them, we'll have them pretty much in a train following behind each other from month to month. So be looking out for a couple next month too.
further questions or comments? If not, will somebody like to make a motion to approve the updates to the standards of patron conduct policy?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Gina.
Second.
Any further questions or comments before we approve this? Let's go ahead and take the action. Who is in favor of approving the updates as presented?
All right.
Good. Fabulous. I always appreciate, just kudos to the team on any of these policies or resolutions, the nice amount of prep work we get in advance to look at and review, but also really always appreciate the presentation at the meeting to further clarify them. So appreciate all the effort and time put into this by your teams, but also the professionalism with which you bring those to the rest of us to kind of take a look at. Appreciate that. Good. With that, we're down to future meeting dates. Well, it says July, but that's today. So August 23rd will be our next regular. August 23rd looks like to be the Strategic and Long Range Planning Committee meeting. Can't tell here. A location to be determined, preceded by the Strategic and Long Range Planning Committee, and no other updates or housekeeping items. With that, move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Nice to see
Bye.
you. Stay cool.
Yes.